Yay! Hi everyone. Thank you for showing up here and coming to see my little talk. I'm Beatriz Costa Gomes, or just B, as people tend to generally call me. Before I go into the actual topic, I'll tell you actually how did I get here. And so I was born and raised in Coimbra. And unless you guys are not from Portugal, Coimbra is a little city between Lisbon and Porto. And since a young age, I was very interested in both brains and computers. I really enjoyed coding and writing, and this is changing by itself. I really enjoyed coding and writing, and I really enjoyed learning about the brain. So I chose my degree, and I chose a degree that allowed me to study both of those things. I could study the brains in neurosciences and the computers. But I always thought that I was going to study the brain as the main focus, and then I would have a little bit of computers just to help me out. Well, it turns out I actually ended up doing a master's in computer science while studying a little bit of the brain. But I wasn't ready to give up yet. And this is when I moved to Manchester. Don't be scared, this is not to scale. Actually, Portugal is not floating around next to the UK. And I started my PhD in 2016, and I was really ready to study the brains, and to study the brains while using experimental biology, particularly Drosophila, which are the fruit flies that annoy everyone. Well, turns out I used a computer to study the things that everyone else in the group was studying, because I couldn't get rid of my enjoyment of using the computer and coding. This is when I actually developed Alfred. Now, Alfred is a software, and it means Advanced Labeling, Fitting, Recognition, and Enhancement of Data. Alfred is much quicker to say. And I started it as a side project. I'll talk a little bit more about it in a bit, but basically this was a side project, and I showed it to my group. And my group was very excited about this. And so my supervisor told me, if you go and present this at a conference and you have success, this can become a part of your project, not just a side project, but part of your PhD. So I went to a biology conference, and it was a success. I had people asking me if they could use Alfred. I was like, yeah, okay, that's cool. My supervisor was very happy with me. He said, now you have to present it somewhere else. So I went to a non-biology conference, and I presented Alfred, and everyone was really excited about it, and people wanted to hear more about the software. I was like, okay, maybe I'm onto something. So I went to a mixed conference, and again, same thing, people interested and wanted to use Alfred, and we're very happy that I had made it. But I noticed one thing. All of my feedback was actually opinions, and it was feedback whether it was a good or not, or whether they could use it or not, was just personal ideas. And another important thing that I noticed is that I never got any technical feedback. This made me realize that no one had any idea of what I was doing, and I was quite surprised. So I realized that it got to the point that even if I just added a small change, that was 10 minutes of coding for me, I added a new button, the time that it took for people to use the software and analyze their images with my software really would decrease a lot. But they had no idea that I could do this. They were quite surprised. And this showed me that while I thought that experimental sciences and computational sciences were really connected, in reality they are very, very disconnected. So I decided to dig further. I spoke with people from all over the spectrum, from pure biologists to pure IT, and to PhD students to principal investigators at the university, because I wanted to know, what do they think that computational sciences can do for them? And what I realized is that everyone thought that the overlap between computer sciences and biosciences is something called bioinformatics. But what the F is bioinformatics? No one actually knows, right? So I asked, and this is what I was told. Bioinformatics is genomics. It's analyzing big, big data. It's analyzing images, and it's just data science. That's what they told me. But it depends on how relaxed you are actually with this definition, because it can be so many other things. It can be systems biology. It can be mathematical modeling. It can be any type of modeling. It can be just anything that you can think of where you apply computational methods to biosciences or other types of sciences. And what I came up with is that the truth is that the overlap should be much, much, much bigger than it actually is. And that people should be aware of that. So I'll do this, I'll tell you as a story. So meet Olaf, the orange biologist. Olaf goes in the lab every day, and he collects data, he does all of these, the pipetting, which is magical. They put two, see-through liquids, and cells and life come out, which is some sort of wizardry. And then Olaf has to go on the computer and analyze the data that he actually collected. Now, the way he does this, I think you would be quite surprised, because he does everything by hand, and it takes forever. Most of the time that he spends on working on his data is not actually in the lab and preparing the data, it's actually analyzing it. And when I say this takes a long time, I'm going to give you real examples. I know of people that analyze thousands of lines in an Excel file by hand. They go and search things by hand. They go and calculate things by hand. I know people that count very bright individual dots on a black background by hand. And you're all looking at me like, why don't they automate it, right? Like, you can do this. Well, Olaf has no idea how to do it. Olaf never had any sort of coding experience. Even if he wanted, there's 3 problems. First of all, Olaf thinks that programmers are either magicians, gods, or nerds. And these are actually actual answers that I got biologists to tell me. Even if he's like, okay, they probably also are human, so I can maybe talk to them, he has no idea how to find them. Where would he find people to talk to and ask these questions? And even if he did, how would he communicate with these developers? And this comes to problem 3. Imagine that he does know someone, he has a friend that is a developer. They speak completely different languages, and they get more confused than they would before. So how can Olaf actually learn and do and automate things? And all of these 3 problems come after the assumption that Olaf knows that he has a problem. Because most of the time, they have no idea they can have this automated. They have no idea that the lines could be, that you can have a script to read the lines and help you. They have no idea that you can just count the dots with the software. So let's go to the other side. We have Bridget, the blue developer. Bridget sees a problem online. She goes and she's like, aha, I can solve this problem. She makes the software, she puts it on GitHub, and she completely forgets about it. That's it. That's up, people can use it, people can Google about it, can find it, and that's it. So Olaf, that has the problem, he doesn't know how to find the tool, point number 1. But let's continue with our assumptions. So let's imagine that Olaf does know that GitHub exists, finds GitHub, finds the software, downloads the software, which is, believe me, this is already a very, very big step. And he looks at the software, has no idea how to use it. Because Bridget, when she uploaded for other developers, not for the end user. So how is he going to use it? Well, we know where this is going to end, in the recycling bin, because it's too long to learn about how to work the software. There's no help, and it's actually probably not going to do exactly what he wants. So Olaf thinks it's much easier if I do this by hand than actually spending the time to learn about this software. So this is a simple story that brings 3 problems. First of all, where and how could a user find a problem? How could they use these problems? This is a very difficult thing. And how can they communicate and contact the developers, right? But then you say, okay, but you're talking about a problem of 2 very different fields that actually don't connect. And you have people in the middle. You have the Inbetweeners, which have slightly blended colors. And I'm going to talk to you about the Inbetweeners. So they have a very specific thing, because since they know a little bit about several fields, they are generally more knowledge, people think that they can solve any sort of problem, like fix printers, like they can answer any sort of biological physics, engineering, maths question just because they actually had some classes about it at uni. And people assume that they have all the time and resources to talk about these things and study and help them with this. But they themselves have no idea what's happening most of the time. they are just as confused as everyone else, and they spend as much time on Google as everyone else. But this is where I tell you about me. I'm actually an in-betweener. And I went to a biological group. And when I arrived, I was quite surprised with what I saw. Most of what they did was experiments that ended up with the fluorescence images. But I want you to notice that there's a circle there that is not as orange. So there's another in-betweener there, and I'm going to tell you about him. So before he was an in-betweener, he was just an orange biologist, biologing his life, doing all of these experiments and going into the lab. So he arrived in this lab, and he realized that the analysis that the group was done was actually by hand, most of it. But there was a peculiarity. He, not just was doing it by hand, the image analysis and everything, but then after they got the values, they would take all of the values one by one, copy it into an Excel sheet, and then copy that column and paste it next to it. And then they would do this for hundreds and thousands of images by hand. And then in the end, they would calculate the ratios, again, just Control-C all of the way. And he thought, come on, this is very archaic. What can I do about this? The peculiarity was that this biologist, his dad is a programmer. So he knew that there could be some sort of automation to this. So he rolled up his sleeves and he learned how to code by himself. He spent a lot of time, spent a lot of researchers learning how to do this and how to actually work and how to make this script. So he made a little script that in reality is what? Not even 20 lines? And it decreased the time by 2/3. So 2/3 of the time that they were wasting was completely automated. And then they can use it now for other things. And these are actually measured times. They actually went to the trouble of calculating by hand how long it would take to analyze, and then to calculate after how long it would take with the software. So in reality, you either die a biologist or you live long enough to see yourself become an in-betweener, which is what happened to him. So I arrived. And as told before, I wanted to do some experimental biology, and for some reason they allowed me in the lab. That was not a good idea. There was many flies that died because of me, a lot of no explosions because I didn't touch any chemicals, but it was not very good. But I wanted to be useful, so I did Alfred. And the way I work with my group is that I develop Alfred, I send it to the in-betweener, he makes a massive bug list, and when I say massive, I think he has some sort of pleasure of making me suffer with the lines and the millions of things that he wants me to fix. He presses every possible button in every possible combination, and I say, no, please don't do that. He was like, no, I don't even know English. I'm just pressing things, and no, this has to work. Then he sends it back to me, and I tune Alfred, and I send it back to him, and we do this a bit. But the idea is that I'm doing this, and Alfred goes also to the end users as well afterwards, which are the rest of the biologists in the group that actually have no idea how the software works. But something that I realize that is very important is that we have meetings every week, and I tell them my ideas, and I tell them what I'm thinking about putting on the software, and most of the time they go, but what are you doing that? That's completely useless. Or, no, that's a great idea, maybe you can do this and that. And I found that the software can actually grow, it can actually be much better because I'm so connected to my end user. It's their ideas that actually brings up the software and actually makes me want to make it better, make it work for them, make it so that their time actually decreases when they're working on their analysis. And I thought this is what happened everywhere. But last month, I went to a conference in Luxembourg. And it was a bioimage analysis conference, so it was a very mixed audience. There was biologists, there were developers, but there was a lot of people in the middle. And at some point, there was a Q&A panel. And this Q&A, the panel and the Q&A, they were just in-betweeners. So these are people that use the softwares every day, and they are sitting on their desks, and they take these softwares online, so they are past the, the GitHub, the installing, the making the software works. They know all of that. They make the software work, and they spend their days analyzing other people's images and data. And so this is like the real people, these are the end users. And the question was, can you communicate efficiently with the developers? Can you actually talk to them? Can you have a conversation with them? Can you send your bug reports to them and everything? And the answer was no. They have no idea how can they communicate with the developers. Two of them, or a little bit new, and they were like, yeah, you have the forums, you can post your question, and maybe it's going to get answered in a while. But most of them had no idea. So my question was, how do you actually communicate with developers? Do you send emails? Do you need Bill, the carrier pigeon, to go and send them and talk to them at some point? And I know that's the obvious answer, that Bill would go. But you have to know where to look for these things. These are the people that spend their days trying to use the software that the developers make and use it and apply it to other things, and they can't communicate. And that's a problem. And also, bug reporting makes a lot of sense for developers, but they have no idea how to do it. They have no idea how to ask for a feature. When we share our ideas, they're so far away, and we share our softwares, they're very far away from what the end users actually can use. So I asked the people that I interviewed for some ideas of how they think they could communicate with the developers. And one of the ideas was that, particularly inside the university, there could be a database with all of the software engineers and what they do and what they can do and what their expertise. But we're back to the assumption that they actually know that they have a problem. So then we came up with the idea of how could we generalize what I actually do and how my group works, how could we generalize this? So the idea was, for example, you have a biological group that for a couple of weeks they are going to record the time that they spend in these menial tasks at the computer. They're going to make a report to that. They pass this report to a couple of in-betweeners, and then the in-betweeners are going to analyze and see, this is a problem, this is not a problem, this is something that can be solved by a software engineer or not. And then you get the biologists to present this to a panel of experts. Can be computer scientists, can be mathematicians, can be physicists, basically someone that doesn't speak their language. The whole idea is that you would have the in-betweeners there to help with the communication, but not just from one end, but also from the other, so that they could communicate actually with each other. But this is a lot of wishful thinking, and this doesn't this doesn't address everything that I've said before, because something that takes Olaf such a long time to do, Bridget can do in half a day, and then his life can be much more, can be made easier. And he can learn, and he can try to invest time and resources on himself, but sometimes they don't have the time for that. And there's still much more. There's other things, for example, when the program is fixed, there it goes, the developer says, okay, I made the software, it's done, it's there. That's it, then it dies. Another thing that we love at the university is licensing, because it's great, and we have to pay for stuff that we really need. So we either do it ourselves, or we pay, the companies that take our souls away. And other problems is that the software that exists is either too general or too specific. So it's a double-edged sword. So what I want to tell you really is that bridging two different fields is very difficult, but it's possible. But it's important that for this bridge to happen, there has to be some sort of mutual awareness of the opportunities by each other, not just one side, but also the other. And I hope that we can find some realistic paths towards this. Because truth is, if we can decrease the time that it takes to analyze the images, to analyze the data, to sequence, to everything, it actually leaves more time for them to continue to mix, the see-through liquids that make magic. And we can know more things, and we can evolve, and we can develop, and we can push science further. So my TLDR for you today is, be aware that these people, not just biology is just my background, not my background, it's just the people that I work with, but be aware that they exist. Be ready to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And maybe, if we can, you can even help save and change someone's life. I want to thank everyone that I've interviewed this race out. One of them is here as well. Because I really wanted to get the perspective. And I will take any questions. Thank you. Okay, yes. Okay, so first of all, if you want to do the stuff, there's always going to be a space, because that's what I found. Biology groups, from my experience, are really, really excited. Sorry, did everyone hear the question? The question is about transition in between computer science to go into a more biological field. So my experience is that they actually are very eager to have someone to look and help them and see the things. And what I noticed is that when a group that has no idea that they have a problem, and suddenly they have someone that codes a little bit, it doesn't even need to be like a proper coder, and they get head over heels about it. So just talk to them, and you're going to see that it's very easy to find an opportunity, and they're very eager to have new people. And now interdisciplinariness is something that is very in fashion, so they are very ready for this. So it's just a matter to actually see something that you want to work on and a group that you would like to work on and talk to them.
Do you find most of that work happens at the universities or private companies?
In terms of research, and I think it's more regarding university by definition, because most of the people that follow a research career path end up in a university. But there's also companies that do that. And companies are always very eager to someone that has a different background to join in, because they've realized that having people from other fields actually helps them think outside the box and come up with solutions that maybe people inside the field couldn't see and wouldn't be aware of. So they're always very ready for that. Yes.
Because, for example, Coursera is offering a specialization in bioinformatics.
Yes.
So how is it important that you actually went to university
to get the formal education? Yeah.
Saying that you did it versus someone that did the course and actually
It doesn't matter the paper saying the university degree. It matters that you actually know and you actually can apply what you know. It was important for my group that I knew how to code because I saw the problem and I fixed it. I engineered my way into it. I was like, nope, this is not working. I'll just fix it myself. And that's how it helped me having a formal education. But if I hadn't had a degree in computer sciences, I would be there. Actually, my project was supposed to be experimental biology and mathematical modeling. So the coding was a small part of what my project was actually going to be. So it's not that important. There was a question, yeah.
Beatriz, thank you so much for the presentation. What do you think about the value in websites like Stack Exchange?
Mm-hmm.
It's changing problems and solutions, information between different fields such as biology.
So one thing I noticed, thank you for asking. So one thing I noticed is that, first of all, we all have that problem in Stack Exchange of someone, I have this problem, can someone fix it? Never mind, I did it. And then you're like, yep, thank you. Thank you so much for solving it yourself. Now I have the problem and I don't know how to do it. And second of all, even if the group of biology is aware that they have a problem, they wouldn't know how to Google it, which is a very important part, because they think they can Google magic words, and I've seen this happen. This is not, I'm not kidding. I've seen someone Google, can you solve my problem, and then not specify anything, and I'm like, this is a very broad question. Yes, it probably can solve your problem, but you have to be more specific than that. So it does help if they already know how to look for it. But most of the problem is really before that, is the lack of awareness and not even knowing how to deal or how to search for or how to even pose their questions. So yeah. Yes?
Well, I know a lot of bioinformatics, mostly, not computer science, are adding the search word to different bioinformatics codes or features that has to do with biology, like anything to do with the genetic analysis, or they
Yes.
add the specific biology word so that biologists can find it better. But don't you think, like, my question is, shouldn't everybody just be aware of, let's say, Stack Overflow?
Yes, they should. Everyone should be aware of, and everyone should have like more useful things on the degrees, like how to Google. That would be a really good 2 hours. But how to search for things. No, it would be very important. But a very important thing that I said is that it's important to have mutual awareness. So I'm talking to you guys, and I'm the most bio person here probably. And I'm telling you to be aware of them. But when I talk to them, I also am like, guys, you have to be aware that other people exist. They were like, yeah, I know what you do. And I'm like, yes, but I'm not the only one. There's more people like me. There's more, nerds, not wizards and gods, but nerds. There's a lot of them. And so yes, they should be more aware. But what happens in biology, specifically the higher in higher education you go, the more specific they get in their group, and the sillier the questions that they search on Google it gets. Is like really specific to their species, and they can't think of something that could be from outside. So it's very difficult. Yes, it's something to tackle.
Because they don't even need to know their
Exactly.
They need to go to Stack Overflow, choose the words.
Yeah.
It has to do with their field, and that's it.
Sometimes it's just awareness that Stack Overflow exists even. Yeah.
So do you think there should be more awareness in terms of like education and faculties and
Yes.
promoting that kind of research?
Yes, and a very important thing that I've noticed in Manchester, for example, is that they are now making it mandatory a course on bioinformatics and coding in Python for biologists even, so that they become slightly more aware of how to work with a computer and, turn it on and off again, that type of thing. Also fix printers by themselves. Also works. Yeah. How to Google 101 would be a good one. and also how the Inbetweeners don't have the answers for everything. Any more questions? Okay, so that's it for me, guys. Thank you for coming to see my talk.